and we're joined now from Edinburgh by one of the candidates for the deputy leadership, Ian Murray. Welcome to Newsnight, Ian.
Good evening.
Look, do you, in running for deputy leader, give endorsements to leadership candidates? Do you end up with a joint ticket? How does it work?
Well, I think any deputy leadership candidate's got to work with any new leader of the Labour Party, and therefore it's very difficult to give endorsements to one or other. But I did nominate Jess Phillips to get her on the ballot paper because I think she's got a lot of great things to say. She's able to penetrate where others perhaps don't, and she's able to talk in a language that some of us find difficult. So Jess Phillips, I thought, deserved to be on the ballot paper, which is why I nominated her. But I've said all along in this process that if the lesson we take from the voters on the 12th of December is that they are desperate for more of the same from the Labour Party, then we've certainly answered the wrong question. I would encourage all of the leadership candidates to give us their thoughts for the future and how they want to take the Labour Party forward in a different direction.
Let's talk about December's lesson then. I mean, in your view, does the Corbyn project have to be entirely jettisoned now?
Well, I think the first and starting point of any analysis of the 12th of December has to be honesty. And whether you were knocking on doors in John O'Groats or Land's End or any constituency in between, what people were telling us were that they didn't want to vote for the leadership of the Labour Party, and they didn't want to vote for the manifesto. There are some individual elements of the manifesto that I think are superb. I think the Green Industrial Revolution was something that was incredibly necessary, and I hope the government takes most of that on board to try and save the planet. And I think the analysis of the economy not working for the majority was the right thing, but it was a wish list that the voters didn't think was credible and didn't think they could vote for it.
So it sounds like a couple of the policies appeal, but as a general principle, Corbynism has to go, in your view.
Well, I think everyone is of the analysis that if we just have a fresh face and a different voice but the same direction, then the Labour Party won't be responding to what the voters have told us. They are the most important thing in this entire process. And as I've said, if the analysis of what the voters have said to us on the 12th of December is that they didn't vote Labour and delivered a 80-seat Conservative majority because they were desperate for us to continue on the same path that we're currently on, then we'll certainly not be responding to what they're saying, and the Labour Party will get what it deserves when voters go back to the polls in the near future.
Do you ever worry that Tom Watson, who held that deputy leadership post until just before the election, may have a point when he says that the Labour Party in its current form doesn't really want power?
Oh, well, that's a decision that every single person who has a vote in this election for leadership and deputy leadership has to consider. They've got one of two options. They can either decide to change the direction of the party and the leadership of the party to make us a credible alternative of government again, or we can stay on the same path and be a perpetual party of opposition and a smaller party of opposition with every passing election. That is the big decision that's ahead of us here, and I think Tom Watson's absolutely right. If we continue on the current path, we will deservedly continue to lose. But I would rather see a Labour Party with the Labour Party values that we all share in the Labour movement becoming a credible alternative government so we can take power again and transform the country.
Ian, if I can just ask you one more quick one. It's a big issue in Scotland, I know. But what would you tell the next Labour leader about a referendum and whether or not it's right to have one?
I think the first thing that I would say is to get off this process story, because whilst we're talking about the process, we're not talking about the big issue. And the big issue is that independence would be bad for Scotland, and Scotland leaving the UK would be bad for the UK. We've all argued for years now about how difficult it would be and how bad it is for the UK to leave the European Union. Those are exactly the same arguments of why Scotland shouldn't leave the United Kingdom. So let's get off these process stories about who deserves to be doing what and who has a mandate for having referendums, and let's get on to the positive story of the United Kingdom and why Scotland leaving the United Kingdom would be bad for Scotland.
Ian Murray, thank you very much indeed.